Hey gamers and YouTubers, Jyran giving over 2.0, and I'm doing Lynette's Hideout. I mean, Hangout, not Hideout, Hangout. Yeah. Anyway, there was a bonus ending to this part of the first Hangout that I showed y'all. Lynette? Something on your mind still?
It was that obvious, huh? Well, even though it didn't feel like Bernard was lying, after talking to him, I'm getting an even stronger sense that something's not quite right. We investigated so quickly that perhaps we've missed a thing or two along the way. Let me activate deduction mode and consider things again from the top to see if we can find anything new. Is there still anything unresolved or strange that we should try to consider?
About what we found in Poisson? Bernard's letters, as an unexplained part in the operations of this trafficking ring.
Well, we've discovered that Bernard is responsible for the trafficking, while Pierre deals with supplying the goods. Is there something else in this scheme that we're missing?
According to Chevre's, Pierre has been formally reprimated for his synth-related research and can no longer get any materials from the research institute. We've already proven that Bernard and Pierre coordinated handoffs. The ledger. Communications. Let's take that out, and the connections. No.
There's no need to rush. Let's see if we can find any other suspicious points.
About what we found in Poisson?
The Marechaussee Phantom found Bonnie and the Lefebvre pendant at Pierre's residence. That was the beginning point of our investigation.
Bonnie... the pendant, the pet handoff, and the end of Lefebvre.
Why would he leave such an obvious trail for us to follow when he took so much care to not leave any traces of imitation synth in his home?
Bernard's letters.
Bernard claims to have received a letter last night from Pierre. In the letter, Pierre stated that he had gone into hiding. Is there something wrong with the letter?
The letter didn't mention Pierre's hiding spots. Bonnie already been loose for a few days when we found her yesterday morning. No. The letter's delivery method. The letter's purpose.
If Bonnie had imitation synth in her body, then she was a liability that had to be recovered at all costs. But if she wasn't carrying anything, then it would have made sense to tell Bernard not to worry.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, Bernard only attracted our attention in the first place because he came to look for Bonnie. Could it be that the person who wrote the letter also knew nothing about Bonnie's whereabouts? Or they had a separate goal entirely?
It could be possible.
Now behave, and follow me to the interrogation room.
That hurt.
Finally got one! Jeez, the Fateometer is sometimes a pain in the aorta. 12, 5 plus 5, 22! No! We can't let them get away! Hold it right there!
Is there something else you need from me, Traveler?
Bernard and Pierre, they weren't really acting alone, were they?
I see. It all makes sense now.
Hey, What are you talking about? Look, even our confessed criminal here has no idea what you're saying.
Because he has been kept in the dark all along. And I assume it's the same with Pierre.
Bernard thought he was communicating with Pierre, and Pierre thought he was taking orders from Bernard. But for all this time, neither of them knew that there was a third person in on this all along.
That never quite added up for me. Why did Pierre feel compelled to return to his home with Bonnie and the pendant and make them so easy to find for the Marechaussee Phantom?
Any animals Pierre received from the floating barrels should have been taken directly to his base. And considering his precarious situation, the pendant should have been the last thing Pierre would leave lying around.
Both of these things are in stark contrast to his usual meticulous and vigilant behavior. There's only one reasonable explanation. He was following orders, just like Bernard. He probably received the following instructions right before the Phantom came knocking on his door. Bring the cat and the pendant, and our undercover agent will be sure to help you. Unbeknownst to him, however, the third person who wrote that letter to him had long decided to sacrifice him and Bernard to save themselves.
They instructed the two men to communicate through letters and barrels specifically so that they never get to meet each other. Honestly, this third person probably planned to sell both of them out from the very beginning.
What? You can't be serious. There was a third person involved?
If you focus only on Bernard's testimony, it's easy to believe that only Bernard and Pierre were working together. The case appeared extremely simple. Bernard did the trafficking, Pierre the imitation synth production, drugging, and stuffing.
Well, everything accounted for, the third person would then be cleared of all suspicion. The third person is the kingpin, obviously.
Wait. But that doesn't make any sense. If that's the actual truth, then as soon as Pierre is caught, he'll explain his side of the story and the third person will...
Yep, which is why the third person made sure that Pierre would never be found again. Once they had instructed Pierre to expose himself, the third person wrote to Pierre again, suggesting that everything had been taken care of, and he should take Bonnie and safely return to his base.
They then ambushed Pierre and made him disappear.
Of course, Pierre's disappearance at such a sensitive time immediately made him a prime suspect. Knowing that Bonnie had last been seen with him, all the third person would have to do from that point on would be to lead the Phantom to investigate the Humane Society and get Bernard to confess the truth.
Bernard would then testify that Pierre was the one who came up with the whole plot, and Pierre would be seen as having gone into hiding in anticipation of getting caught.
Wait, so you're saying that the letter I received yesterday, the one that made me think Pierre was still alive, it was also sent by the third person?
Is that what happened? I'll get back to headquarters right away and reinvestigate this case from the top.
Not so fast!
Shelvra said that assumptions can be detrimental to solving a case. Someone among us, however, has been feeding us all kinds of preconceived notions ever since our first meeting. They suggested that Pierre's disappearance was an attempt to escape the judgment of the law, and that Pierre was a scion of the Lefebvre family. But if the disappearance is truly just a cover-up for a murder, then couldn't the true scion have been an illegitimate daughter, rather than an illegitimate son?
Miss Elodie Lefebvre!
Huh?
Haven't you taken this joke a bit too far? You're right. I did let a lot of assumptions get to my head when I first started to talk to you about the case. I'll make sure to correct my behavior.
You deliberately fed us lies, but even you could not control every last detail of your plan. There was a flaw in your scheme, and something didn't quite go as planned. Getting the Marechaussee Phantom to notice Pierre was only the first part of your plan. Had they failed to take notice of the Humane Society, they could have cast a wider net. And you couldn't predict what they might possibly find, if given enough time. This, of course, was the main weakness of your plan.
And once the Special Patrol and Linny got involved, it became even harder to control the outcome.
As someone accustomed to acting from behind the scenes, you didn't want to take the risk of personally proposing a raid on the Humane Society. So, you thought about pulling a few more strings, so all the suspicion would point towards Bernard and his society.
A great option, of course, would be to also dispose of Bonnie and leave her body at Pierre's base in anticipation of a later discovery.
Once the Phantom expanded their search, it would only be a matter of time before they found Pierre's base. If a cat last seen with the suspect turned up dead at the imitation synth base, it wouldn't be long until the Phantom would figure out exactly how she had been mistreated and turn their eyes towards the one organization that has been sending boatloads of animals out of Fontaine.
However, something unexpected happened at the base. Bonnie managed to escape.
It was probably during your ambush of Pierre. You didn't even have the time to check if she had already been stuffed full of imitation synth. Still, you soon found another opportunity. Before long, Bonnie had made her way back into the city, and even popped up on the Steambird. Like Bernard, you desperately wanted to confirm the contents of her stomach, so you hurried to find us. Unlike Bernard, however, you were hoping that Pierre did have the time to make her swallow a load of imitation synth. While investigating the suspect's cat, we unexpectedly discovered that the suspect has been smuggling imitation synth using living animals as intermediaries. That was your plan, in any case. With that, you'd have been able to lead the investigation towards the Humane Society.
But Bonnie was very lucky. You were extremely unlucky.
Bonnie had managed to escape before Pierre was able to stuff her full of imitation synth. That part of your plan could no longer be carried out. But as shrewd as you were, you came up with another plan right away. You manipulated the Traveler and I to help you identify Bernard as a key suspect.
You knew Linny was investigating the case with Chevreuse, and you also knew of Lynette's previous encounter with the Lefebvre family.
You used the Lefebvre name as bait to get us to join your investigation. With 2 extra bodies around, the Special Patrol is sure to soon take note of the strange event of Bernard somehow having a reason to look for Pierre's cat.
So, what you're saying is, I went to all that trouble just for the chance that you might put forth the suggestion that would lead you down the wrong path.
Of course, you did far more than that. Just now at Lumidu's harbor, were you not the person who highlighted the suspicious activities of the society?
By showing us the port's travel logs.
You even highlighted the society's activities during your compilation of the logs, so they'd be immediately visible to anyone examining the records. Moreover, the logs contained no records of the Port Authority's activities. In other words, your activities.
And what are you trying to suggest with that?
I am insinuating that you had plenty of opportunities to transfer the raw materials for imitation synth from the harbor to a boat, and then sail over to the meeting place full of floating barrels.
Once Bernard had placed the animals in the barrels, you open the lids and also dump in raw materials. As long as you did it before Pierre came for his pickup, there'd be no one the wiser.
And that's how neither the trafficker nor the manufacturer knew there was a third person who supplied the raw materials and surreptitiously operated between them.
First, you got in touch with both parties and secured the raw materials. Then you instructed Bernard to prepare the floating barrels and animals. After that, you slipped the raw materials into the barrels next to the animals and requested that Pierre pick up the barrels and bring them back to base.
Pierre manufactured imitation synth using the raw materials you provided, stuffed the animals, and placed the animals back into the barrels. Having received the green light from you as Pierre, Bernard then retrieved his animals and shipped them out of Fontaine once he had received enough for a full batch. This is the truth behind your smuggling ring.
I can't believe it. I never put 2 and 2 together.
You've sure got an extremely lively imagination.
So what do you think she's going to say next?
Even though ever thought about a career in writing crime novels, but do you have any evidence?
But do you have any evidence?
It appears that it's quite easy to predict what you'll think or say. Then if we apply that to this case, we can also think of a few places to look for incriminating evidence.
Oh!
You know very well that this case will not end until Pierre is found. So you will have him commit suicide out of fear and shame to end the investigation for good. That way, you can also pin the blame for the overseas smuggling activities, the theft of the harbor's confiscated raw materials, and even the Lefebvre name on him. After all, dead men tell no tales.
Oh, that's a pirate saying. Hey.
But you still want it to appear as if he had sent that last letter to Bernard, so you have to make sure he cannot be found until after Bernard has confessed to the authorities. To do that, you either will hide his body until you've found an appropriate time to set up a fake suicide scene, or you'll dump it someplace where it'll be hard to determine the exact time of death. Submerged in water, for instance.
Oh!
The location would ideally allow you to keep the body hidden for some time while also letting you keep an eye on it.
You could also keep him in a very cool environment to be handled later, or set a fire to make sure it looked like he burned himself to a crisp. An example of such a place may be somewhere in your boat or underneath the waters near Lumidos Harbor.
There are only so many options to hide a person's time of death, after all. As long as the Phantom investigates each of the possibilities in turn, they'll surely find Pierre's remains.
Ew.
Especially since, as the prime suspect who will now be taken into custody, you will no longer have the time to move him, or set up a fake suicide scene to cover up the murder.
How absurd. And on what grounds will you order my arrest? Don't think for a second that your spouts of nonsense will amount to any kind of real argument. After all, I'm
Elodie Lefebvre!
Oh! They arrived on time! Lenny and Chevroz!
As the captain of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol, I hereby declare you as a suspect in the case. If you have any objections, you may raise them later during interrogation.
You guys are here too!
That's right. We received a message from Lumidos Harbor that you were going to investigate the Humane Society. We didn't expect to run into you at such a critical moment.
Glad you guys came here on time!
While at the harbor, we noticed something else extremely interesting. Apparently, you often used all kinds of excuses to swap your shifts. And if one were to match the times of your shifts to the activities of the Humane Society and those of certain foreign ships, they'd find them to be an exact match.
That's just a coincidence.
Yes, I'm sure you have already thought of a dozen different ways to explain away the suspicious activities. But as far as evidence goes, that should be enough to warrant taking you into custody.
Lefebvre, Elodie, you lose.
Don't worry. If it turns out that the guards are still unable to find any evidence after all this, Lynette and I will do everything in our power to clear your name.
Oh boy.
Although judging by her reaction, I assume no follow-up from us will be needed.
True.
The Lefebvres were infamous for using disguise and infiltration to achieve their goals. Who would have thought that they would have planted someone within the guards?
Judging from the timeline, they likely arranged for you to enter the guards before the fall of the clan. But they probably didn't expect you to turn it to your advantage and use your job to save yourself during the purge.
Oh!
Not only that, but you actively participated in the interrogation, arrest, and judgment of the Lefebvres during their fall, thus clearing yourself of suspicion.
Being one of the family after helping bringing your family's downfall. Oh, I wonder how they feel about you in the afterlife.
Brutally and cruelly abandoned your allies as soon as they outlived their usefulness. Just like a lizard cutting off its own tail in order to live. You've been doing this for years.
Actually, lizards can grow their tails back, but for her, their tail's already been long gone.
So you played me like a fool after all? Ah!
Whoa!
What was that word you used? Ally? You think that someone as foolish as him is worthy to call himself my ally? They were worthless scum. All of them. Not just Bernard and Pierre, but those Lefevres too. They always just saw me as a tool. I lost all my chances of a normal life just because I was born into their lot. Not only that, but because they wanted me to become an undercover agent, they stripped me of my name, too. I had to live in constant fear of them while they were alive. And even once they were gone, I had to continue to bury my heritage and my name. Always worrying that their enemies would come knocking at the door. Do you know anything about what I've been through over all these years? My life as the last Lefevre?
I don't, and neither do I care.
No one asked about your past. You can save that speech for the trial.
Are you for real? Aren't you a Lefevre victim too?
Elodie, you're the only one still living under the shadow of a name.
That's enough. Keep your hands where I can see them and do not resist arrest. If you have more to say, save it for the interrogation room.
What a joke. What a joke! Hey!
Whoa!
Don't come any closer.
Is that
What's that?
a detonator? The small device that Elodie took her appears to be very crude, and it's made paper mache?
You know what this is? I've secretly planted loads of explosives in the Humane Society. Just one step closer, and whether they're cats, dogs, or just unlucky human employees, they'll all be blown up into smithereens. Surely, you bunch of goody two-shoes won't let that happen, right?
Oh, please, please, please! 18! Yes!
I can understand how you feel. Like you, we are also victims of the Lefevre clan. But if you were to endanger innocence now for your own gain, the public anger towards the Lefevres would only rise to a boiling point, and the families of the new victims would be dead set on exacting revenge on you.
And what of it?
I'll be your hostage, Elodie.
What?
Lenny, don't!
Thanks for your concern, Traveler. But we need to end all of the hate and violence arising from this clan once and for all. I'll raise my hands and come over slowly. I promise that I'm completely unarmed.
I'm watching you. Don't think for a second you can pull a fast one on me.
That's right. Just keep your eyes on me. Don't look away.
Got you! Face it, Missy! You lose!
Phew. So I was right after all. It's easier to deal with the person causing the problem than the problem itself.
And what about the detonator?
This is it. Looks like it's just a toy.
So she really was bluffing!
Guess that's probably why she suddenly flipped and knocked out Bernard. He probably knew that there were no explosives at the society.
She also pretended that she also pretended like she had a villainous breakdown, as if she had no choice but to kill to escape life.
Well, given that she never even showed her face to Bernard and Pierre, I had my doubts that she'd have gone to the society in person to plant explosives.
You're not the only one who had that doubt. All I saw in her eyes was crazy, 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 and inspiration.
Thank you for your help, everyone. I'll take them back for thorough questioning and find someone better to take over the Humane Society. I might need a few statements from everybody. Would you be able to come with me?
Wait, not inspiration, you know what I mean. Sure, Chevrolet.
If statements are all you need, can Lenny provide them on my behalf? I still need to go back and explain some things to the crew. I also had an appointment with the Traveler before we got interrupted.
You mean when you said I could stop by your place for tea?
Ah, so you do remember. Yes, I invited you to come over to our place. Once I'm done talking with the troupe, I'll make a nice cup of tea and bring Bonnie to wait for you outside of my door.
Okay. Guys,
You must have spent a record-breaking amount of time in serious mode today. I can't remember the last time I've seen you like this. Is it because of a special someone?
there are a few things I'm curious about. How did Pierre get recruited into the scheme?
Based on information that we found before, Imitation Synth was first circulated on a small scale in Fontaine before becoming a large-scale smuggling scheme. I'd assume that the first offerings of Imitation Synth came from what Pierre made in his early days. But since he was not experienced with running a clandestine operation, he was soon discovered by guard Elodie. Elodie saw the opportunity to make a great profit in his work, and perhaps even the chance of making a new life for herself, so she decided to cover his tracks. She started writing to him in Bernard's name, using what evidence she had compiled and the promise of enormous profits to blackmail him into cooperating with her. Unfortunately for her, she ran into Lynette. Even though my sister doesn't like to focus too much on a regular day, serious mode Lynette is one of the most perceptive people I've ever known. Still, all of that thinking really saps her energy. I need to go give some statements on her behalf, so I'll leave the recharging to you.
Okay, thanks, Lenny. Chevreuse?
You can leave the rest of this to me. The other guards will be joining me shortly. Don't worry, they won't have another chance to escape.
There are still a few things I'm curious about. How did Elodie get her hands on the raw materials?
The materials have many other regular uses outside of being used to make imitation synth, so they're not immediately subject to being confiscated or destroyed.
Right.
The harbor would usually just seize them for some time while the customs paperwork is filled out and approved. If approved, they'd be let through, and if not, they'd be returned to sender. Elodie probably used her position to replace a portion of the shipment with something else before sending the whole shipment back to sender.
Right.
Given that the foreign merchants who sent in the shipments were probably working with her in the first place, they likely just never reported the difference in what they sent and what they received. We will, of course, continue to investigate the rest of the details of this case. Now that we've caught Elodie, figuring out the whole scheme should just be a matter of time.
Yeah. Anyways, you two do what you do. I gotta go meet up with Lynette. Lenny, good seeing you again, my #1 Fontaine 5-star. Stars of today. Lynette.
Black tea and a cute kitty. Truly the best combo for standby mode.
Black tea. Never heard or seen that kind of tea.
Want some?
A cup of tea, please.
I hope you'll like it.
About Elodie's case, are you not interested in any follow-up developments from it?
Not at all. Information is indeed very important, but if you were to try to collect every piece of information you come across, your efficiency would actually decrease. Plus, if you just think about it, what sounds more fun? Writing a statement or enjoying a tea party?
Fine, the tea party.
Great answer. That'd be my pick too. Had we not run into that case, we could have spent the entire day like this. But now, I'm running low on both time and energy.
The key isn't how long you spend in... The key isn't how long you spend in standby mode. With quality time, you should be able to recharge more quickly.
You're right. I can sense it. I'm recharging very quickly at the moment.
I still have a question, though. When did you start to suspect Elodie?
Something about her rubbed me the wrong way since the very beginning. But to be more precise, it was probably around the time when I saw Bonnie try to get away from her.
Back then, Elodie tried to get close to Bonnie. Meow.
Elodie tried to get close, but Bonnie deliberately dodged her. Maybe Bonnie had tried to evade her before at Pierre's base. Or perhaps Bonnie just instinctively knew that she wasn't a good person. Not everyone who likes cats is a good person. But if cats like you, you're probably alright.
Fair enough.
Humans tend to overthink things, but cats rely on their instincts, and they're pretty sharp. I mean, just look at Bonnie.
Yeah, I see.
She took a liking to you the moment you met.
Obviously. Adventurers, investigators, and cats. Ah, this is so cute. Yeah, this is the real ending to that investigation. Ooh. Okay, that should be the end for now. I'll see you on the next ending of Lynette's Hangout. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next gaming adventure. This is Jyran giving you all the 2.0. Keep on gaming, and I'll see you all in my next one. Stay safe out there and have a righteous day or night. Peace.